Good evening, everyone. This is Josh, or Agent Carpo, if you will. It's Friday evening, and while others are out partying, I'm here pondering the question of exactly what constitutes empirical evidence. Now, I know this is a wide subject, a topic open for debate. Plenty of people will have their own idea of what empirical evidence means. For those of you who don't know the word or are not familiar with the actual definition, empirical evidence would be whatever evidence is sufficient for you to truly believe in something. Empirical evidence would be the opposite of faith. Faith would be a belief without any evidence whatsoever. Empirical evidence would be enough evidence to support you believing in something. Now, for each person, that's going to be different. No two people are going to find the same amount of evidence useful, and especially no two people are going to find the same amount of evidence, actually legitimate evidence. One person may hear a story about UFOs, instantly believe in them. Another person may need to have to actually ride on a ship. And still there are people who, even if aliens landed on their lawn and abducted them and probed their asses, they still wouldn't believe. Because some people aren't prepared to believe in certain things. And some people aren't willing to believe in everything. Some people aren't willing to believe in anything. Now, I've often, not often, but occasionally been accused of being a person who doesn't believe in anything. In that sense, from a particular perspective, one could think of me as closed-minded. However, from my point of view, I feel like I'm overwhelmingly open-minded to the point where I'm not willing to accept anything based on anyone else's word of mouth. This goes for everything. Religion, politics, ethics, experience, dangers. Now, there are some things we can see obviously through history that are damaging or harmful to us, such as we're well aware that if we walk up to a cliff and jump off, there are going to be circumstances for that. We might die, or at least break a leg. We know this because we've seen through history many stories of people doing exactly that, and we still have yet to hear a story of anyone jumping off of a cliff, landing perfectly, and walking away from it. Not that I doubt it's happened. That's just my example. Now, some things like politics are a little harder to understand. We might think that if we make a particular decision, it's going to go a certain way. Let's use Obamacare for the example, since it seems to be on the top of the news headlines. There are two major sides to the argument. One is in support, and one is opposed. The side that's opposed claims that there is money that's going to be diverted from other useful civil things, that we're wasting money on people who otherwise don't care for themselves or might not put forth any effort. I've heard some people from the right-wing camp say things like, the poor choose to be poor, and I heard one guy say on the Jon Stewart show that they should stop being poor. He said they should get a GED and get a job. What kind of an ignorant asshole says something like that? Well, we have the same douchebags on the left wing, saying the same stupid things. Seems like nobody even knows what they're talking about. People are just repeating what they hear on the news. They're repeating the same old facts that they're hearing from others. The politicians do it. The newscasters do it. I mean, look at how they've called election results in the past and been wrong because they were following Fox News. We live with a lot of stupid people, and we're all forced to get along together. There's this big meshing pot of humans who look alike, but some of us just have absolutely no coherency, and it's unfortunate that it seems like often those are the folks who are wearing the suits and ties. The people who somehow got into political office with absolutely no idea how to really be a human. They're like robots playing robot games. We're stuck at the mercy of their judgment. So, where do they get their information? From the scientists, from the polls, from the evidence. And their empirical evidence comes the same way all of ours comes. But for some reason we listen to certain people, as if they have more information than we do. For example, if the president tells us that this is the best for us, half the people are going to say, hell no, he's always wrong. The other half might say, yeah, we'll go along with it because he's the president. But the fact is, he's relying on the same information we're all privy to. It's not like it was 50 years ago, where those in charge got the information first, and the rest of us waited. With the internet, we all get the information. And yeah, there's still inside information, things we're unaware of, things we're not privy to. But it's my belief that the humanity collective consciousness is always aware of what's going on. We each play a little part in the scheme of understanding what's true and what's not. And we can each contribute a little bit to that pot and build it up. But there's a bigger problem right now than understanding the empirical evidence, or even what constitutes empirical evidence. Because it's the idea of, what are we trying to collect empirical evidence for? See, the evidence is always going to support the person who's seeking it. This is what we found through observer effect and quantum physics. We don't understand how the minute world works. We don't understand how the larger world works. And we're doing our best to understand how physics create the operation of the universe, or allow it to function the way it does. But there are more questions than answers right now. So we're left with this one big question, which is, what question should we be asking? I mean, really, you could talk in circles, and it seems like a lot of us are talking in circles about what is evidence and what is true and what isn't. The question isn't really what is true. The question is, what should we be seeking and why? Are there particular issues that are more important? Of course there are. But who are we to determine which issues those are? For people who live in areas where water is scarce, water rights, water management is a big issue to them. For people who live in areas where there's nuclear reactors or weapons, radiation may be their concern. For me personally, I have many concerns, a wide variety of concerns, but it all comes back to that empirical evidence. Sometimes we get ourselves all concerned about something that doesn't exist or may not exist. I guess I'll have to get into an example here, and I don't want to get my throat cut because of it, metaphorically, of course. Chemtrails. That was a big subject for me about 2 years ago. I believed that chemtrails existed, that every time I saw a contrail in the sky, it was chemicals that were being sprayed. Barium, aluminum, different various chemicals in order to help solar management, radiation. I've read 1,000 different ideas. Then I read that barium levels were higher, so I did my research and I found out that barium is a byproduct of mining and that they're higher because it's just deposited all over the place. There are many different factors to why there's a lot of aluminum. The Earth's crust is 7% aluminum. So I went through all these different factors and said, what could be the truth? What is the best I can create? Which type of empirical evidence would be the best I could come up with? And I got a lot of flack for it because I basically told myself that, yes, I've seen real chemtrails in videos where they have planes flying over and dropping chaff, or maybe even dropping some sort of metal particulates to block out the sun. I've seen the plans, I've seen the paperwork, I've seen ideas for solar radiation management. And in theory, they could be doing it. But the point is, there are thousands of people who look up in the sky in fear every time there's contrails. I've heard people say that they don't let their kids play outside when they see trails in the sky. Now, you can do your homework and find that they're more plentiful in the spring and in the fall because of the change in the weather. You'll have a sunny day, and it's usually the cloud patterns that will follow. People will say that they'll turn their jets on and off, but really it's when they hit a wet patch in the air. You can go through all the science. You can go to the contrail information page and understand how these things work, but people are still going to dispute it. So that led me to realize that, and not only that, but let's say the people who called me a moon agent at one time because I told them that the moon was real. I respect people's thoughts. I respect people's beliefs. But when it comes to the point where they assume that you are an agent or you are lying merely because you believe in something that has been believed rationally throughout history. You have to start questioning the source. And this is where people do need to step up and say, this person is wrong. Because it's nice in theory to step back and say, everyone can have their own thoughts, everyone can have their own opinions, and to each his own. But when those thoughts are affecting the whole of humanity, it becomes an issue. And the reason why I see it an issue right now is because there are major problems we need to be dealing with. And there are folks out there that are fighting causes that might not even be real. And I know I've said it before, and I know I'll say it again, that people need to really wake up, not just wake up to what they think is the truth. And I'm going to go through and do the phases of what I think the phases of this awakening would be. And I'm not trying to sound cheesy or anything, but I'm going to do a video right after this where I'm going to basically try to list each one of the parts that we go through when we're developing a new awareness. And there are many. There's the awe, the shock and awe, the awareness, the anger, the fear, the retaliation, the subtlety, the acceptance. Some people become passive. And so when we come back to this empirical evidence, do any of us really have a right to say what that is? Because to me, I know that there are people out there who, if Jesus did come down from heaven, let's say in a second coming, and told the whole world that it was all true, plenty of people still wouldn't believe it. If aliens landed and said that they've been here for millions of years and showed us their bases and all their ships, people still wouldn't believe it. There's still people who would say it's an illusion, it's not true, because the human mind is only designed to process certain amount of information, and when a person goes into an overload mode, they go into a defensive mode with their brains quite often, and they shut out anything real. If a person's believed something for a really long time, and then somebody comes in with newfound information, people just block it, almost instinctively. And that's what I'm hoping would stop, because it's not the information often that people are bringing that people need to listen to. It's people who are telling others that their information may be wrong, because nobody wants to be wrong. I've been called out on some of my evidences that I've found, and I've had to eat my words because I say, well, I can't find the study for that. It's just something I heard, and I realize I've been caught up in speculation like everyone else. So, namaste, everybody, and we'll be talking to you soon. Peace.